Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you're joining. A very warm welcome to today, the fourth day of our week-long Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock Multi-Stakeholder Partnership meeting. Let me just give you a couple of notices first to inform you that we will be recording the session and it will then be posted on FAO as well as the conference sites. There is interpretation. If you have your screen not in full screen mode, you will see an option for translation and you can choose French or Spanish. If you choose those, you need to mute the main feed coming from the conference stage. Otherwise, you'll be listening to two languages at once. And you will also see a button that's called Q&A. Please use that like a chat. If you've got comments, if you want to ask a question, please feel free just to post in there. And our conference support team will be sharing those questions and comments with us as we go through this afternoon session. I do hope that you've also been able to join through the week and that you found this a fruitful time. If you've missed something, all the session recordings can still be accessed. Just go to the conference hall and select the date. And you can also see the expo hall, where yesterday we had a really good time, lots of fantastic exhibitions, and it's really worth a look. Today, though, we're going to begin with some really exciting presentations and a panel session that will allow us to explore some of the other initiatives that the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock needs to interface with. That is, the FAO Committee on Agriculture, quite newly formed Subcommittee on Livestock, and the Committee on Food Security. I believe this will complement nicely the other areas we've already explored this week: the Food System Summit, the Net Zero Dairy Initiative, inputs from regional consultations, and learning about ongoing activities across partners and beyond. Informed by these rich inputs following this first slot, we'll then all have a chance to contribute what each of us sees as priorities for the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock going forward. First, though, let me welcome Alwin Kopce, who is Deputy Assistant Director General of the Swiss Federal Office for Agriculture. He is Associate Head of Knowledge Systems, Technology and International Affairs Directorate, and he leads the Unit for International Affairs and Food Security. Alwin, and indeed Switzerland, have been long-term supporters and partners of the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock. Alwin's going to introduce our presenters, and then he'll moderate a panel discussion. Alwin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Shirley, for this very kind introduction to me and to the session. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be your moderator for this first hour this afternoon, morning, or evening, wherever you are. Welcome to everybody. So, as you know, the international community is engaged in a broad discussion about the transformation of our food systems in order to meet the Agenda 2030 goals. And this will culminate later this year in the Food System Summit of the United Nations. But who says transformation also says a collaboration, because systems as complex as our food systems cannot be transformed by one single actor alone. So we will this afternoon explore a little bit the potential to embrace collaboration and check out, are there synergies, how can we work together in order to foster a livestock sector change. We will start this by two presentations on committees that either exist already or are newly formed, which is the Committee on World Food Security and the newly established subcommittee on livestock of the Committee on Agriculture of FAO. Then these two inputs will be followed by a participant stakeholders from different stakeholders group. We will have a panel where colleagues from the different stakeholder groups can then express their expectations, their views on collaboration between those committees and GASL and their respective stakeholder groups. So now to the audience who's listening or watching in now, please don't forget, ask your questions. They somehow will be transmitted to me, and I will be hopefully able to transfer those questions to the panelists who will answer that, of course, if we have time at the end of this hour. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Buddy Besbes. Buddy is a senior animal production officer and head of the animal production genetics branch of the Animal Production and Health Division of FAO. He has more than 25 years of experience in management of animal genetic resources. He joined FAO in 2006 and is currently the secretary of the subcommittee on livestock that was formed by the Committee on Agriculture of FAO and will hopefully be confirmed next week by FAO conference. He will talk about this, a subcommittee on livestock. Buddy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alvin. And good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. I'm very pleased to introduce the COAG Subcommittee on Livestock. And in this short presentation, I will talk about the rationale for the creation of the subcommittee. I will talk about the terms of reference and rules of procedures, about the provisional draft agenda, and of course about potential collaboration and synergies with GASL. There are several reasons for establishing the subcommittee, and here I will only mention three. Despite the size and the dynamic nature of the livestock sector, FAO does not have a dedicated intergovernmental forum to advise the governing bodies of FAO on technical and policy measures to optimize the contribution of the sector to the SDGs. The second reason is that due to the breadth of its mandate, COAG is not able to devote sufficient time and attention to matters related to livestock sector. With the exception of the last session of COAG 27, they would devote one or two agenda items to address the livestock sector issues. And this is among the 20 or so agenda items of COAG. And the third reason is that FAO rules and procedure foresee the establishment of such subsidiary bodies. And as a matter of fact, other FAO technical committees and statutory bodies have established their subsidiary bodies to adequately consider important subsectorial issues. And I give here the example of the Committee on Fishery, which established two subcommittees. The Committee on Commodity Problems has established three subcommittees, and the Commission on Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, which has established 4 subsidiary bodies. So the Subcommittee on Livestock provides a forum for consultation and discussion on all matters related to livestock and advise COAG on technical and policy-related issues. In particular, it should identify and discuss major trends and issues in the global livestock sector and make recommendations to COAG. It should prepare a multi-year program of work and monitor its implementation. And last but not least, should collaborate with existing partnerships and establish communication channels with the several stakeholders. the members, the FAO members has decided that all members of COAG are members of the subcommittee. Here we are talking about the 126 members plus the European Union. They also decided that all observers of COAG are also observers of the subcommittee. And at each session, the subcommittee has to elect its bureau, composed of a chairperson and 6 vice chairpersons, and should hold one session per biennium. The COAG and the FAO Council recommended that the first session of the subcommittee be held during the first quarter of 2022. And the first step in the preparation of this session is to prepare the draft agenda. And that's what I have been doing so far. In March 21, we have initiated brainstorming with FAO divisions and units, as well as regional offices, to collect ideas on priorities and emerging issues. We also invited observers and partners to provide also their proposals. And based on this first round of consultation, we drafted the 0 draft annotated agenda, and we submitted it to the members of the COAG Bureau for consultation. And actually, this consultation went into several rounds of iteration, both the members of the Bureau and with the regional groups, and this has led to the production of a draft provisional agenda, which we just submitted to the Bureau and to the chair of the COAG for his endorsement. We hope upon the endorsement of the chair, this agenda will be submitted to the FAO senior management for approval, and we hope this approval will be achieved by mid of June, so that we can inform the technical units start the preparation of the documents. Our objective is to have all documents ready by mid of September, so that we have enough time to review and to approve the document and translate them into all FAO languages. So the draft provisional agenda, as it's now in front of the Bureau members, contains, in addition to the procedural matters, as you can see here, 9 substantial discussion items and 11 information documents. These 9 substantial discussion items are grouped into 3 thematic areas. The first one is sustainable livestock for food security, nutrition, and poverty reduction. I'm not going to read through for the sake of time. The second thematic area deals with animal health, and here also we have 3 agenda items under this heading, and we have the third one uses COAG terminology, other matters, and here we have 3 agenda items. The first one is the alignment of FAO's work on livestock with the new strategic framework of FAO. And we will be discussing also the multi-year program of work of the subcommittee, and we'll be discussing also how to improve communication on livestock sector benefit and challenges. This agenda item has been proposed by a number of member countries of the COAG Bureau. So as you can see, there are plenty of topics that we can collaborate with GASL on. There are 3 possibilities to collaborate for collaboration between the subcommittee and GASL. First, the GASL members can collaborate on the sessions themselves. They can contribute to the development of the agenda of each session. And actually, that's what GASL have been doing, and the members of GASL have been doing. They have provided their feedback on the agenda. They also can prepare, GASL can prepare information document on its work. And this is a request from the COAG to GASL. The COAG has invited GASL to prepare a report on its activity and present it at each session of the subcommittee. And of course, you all can contribute and participate in the sessions as observer. In addition, we have been discussing with GASL members who showed interest to contribute to some of the topics that are being developed. And among this is the good practices to sustainably enhance the productivity of small-scale producers. And here, I know that the team in charge of this work has invited some members of GASL to propose good practices that are validated on the ground. The GASL members can also participate in the validation workshop of this work and also have the possibility to review the draft technical document that will be produced. Likewise, the GASL members can also contribute to the global assessment on the contribution of livestock sector to food security, nutrition, and healthy diet. And there are many ways to do that. First, they can recommend experts that could help us to develop this document. We will invite them to participate in the launch of the launch meeting that will take place in 2 weeks' time. And we will invite them to express their interest either to join the technical advisor group or join the reviewer group. With this, Chair, thank you for your attention and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Buddy, for your excellent presentation. It was indeed very informative. You introduced the mechanics of the subcommittee, how it will work, and laid out some of the issues. It's quite impressive what the committee will have to work on, and I certainly see a huge potential of collaboration there, and also you highlighted some of the ways GASL will be able to contribute to that process. So now let me come to the second speaker who will talk to us about the work of the Committee on World Food Security. It's my pleasure to introduce the chair of the committee, His Excellency Thanawat Tianzin. He's the permanent representative of Thailand to the UN agencies in Rome and was elected to the chairmanship of the CFS in 2019. Prior to representing his country at the Rome-based agencies, he was assistant director and senior expert on international livestock trade and cooperation at Thailand's Department of Livestock Development in the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives. Mr. Tianzin holds a PhD in veterinary epidemiology and economics, and he's trained in veterinary medicine. So he's indeed a specialist and an expert on matters of GASL. So Thanawat, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Erwin. And also I would like to, because now I'm in Thailand, I just returned here last 2 days ago, and that's why I'm talking to you from the quarantine. Thank you very much for the invitation. And also I think it's my pleasure to share our views on these issues, because we know that livestock is an essential part and also play an important role in the food system. When you wake up in the morning, in the past, I assume everyone will start with having breakfast. But right now the world changed. We start with check our mobile phone. But once we look at our dish or our breakfast in the morning, we know already livestock products is part of our food. And that's why when you're talking about collaboration, synergies to foster livestock sector change, just look at our own dish. if we want to be healthy, our food also should compose of several kinds of food and also nutrients that can help us to have a better health. When we're talking about livestock, we know that livestock products give us a high quality of proteins that are critical components in addressing wasting, stunning, or very essential for malnourished people and also for all of us as a human being, because we need to get protein. And animal protein is one of an essential protein that we can get everywhere. And also we know that the livestock sectors has been increasing or growing during the past decades. All of you are working in livestock. You see these pictures. You see about eggs, about milk, about meat that is a high quality of protein. But right now, many people are asking us, especially the outsiders, that the livestock sectors that we are producing the animal products or livestock products, we produce in such a way that go to the in a sustainable manner or not, or they want to see the livestock sectors to produce food for us in a sustainable way. And that's why right now some people also look at the quality of other proteins which may be available for our global population. And that's why it's the issues that livestock sector have to think about it. When you're talking about livestock, we know that livestock help us on food supply to support us for family nutrition, and also help us to increase the family income, asset saving, soil productivities, and so on. Or even though in some countries, livestock still play an important role in agricultural traction, but now it's less and less because of mechanization replace those animals. And we know that livestock also, especially rural women, play a key role in livestock management and household activities, because livestock are critical for women and children in the rural area. This one is all the good things that we learn and we have heard about livestock. And we know that livestock also is give us an affordable protein and nutritious diet for all for many years. But now the world has changed, the world is very dynamic. Many people also asking, is there any alternative protein sources, or maybe cheaper, or maybe produced in such in sustainable way, or in the way that better than we produced before? And that's why it's a time for us to revisit ourselves, to revisit the livestock sectors, what we can do more to strengthen the sectors, to improve the sector in such a way that people are looking at the moment, because we are talking about transformation of sustainable food system. And we also know that the livestock sectors play an important role because 1 billion smallholders, food producers across Africa, Asia, rely on livestock for their livelihoods. But anyway, many people also asking, perhaps most of benefit of livestock sectors go to the big livestock company in the world. And that's why how to keep these types of balance between big corporates and also the small holder producers, which actually is also another key challenge that we have to answer. We know that for many years, livestock has been blamed about one of the key sectors that produce greenhouse gas emission. As you see from the slide that I got information from FAO and other sources, that we know that livestock play a role in releasing greenhouse gas emission. But in the meantime, we know that livestock people or people who are working in livestock sectors are working so hard for many years, try to reduce the greenhouse gas emission from livestock sector itself, try to improve the best practice and emerging options to make sure that the way that we produce also have a positive, don't give any negative impact to our environment, to our planet. We know that there are several questions about livestock, about the global food giants source, for example, when we produce soya or any other animal feed. Sometimes it linked to the illegal deforestation in some regions, in some countries. But in the meantime, on the other hand, we know that we are also working very hard to improve the way that we produce, to improve the grassland, to improve pasture management for livestock sectors and other sectors. This one is the way that we are working at the moment around the world. And also one of the issues that livestock sector still facing every day now and then about the animal disease, transboundary animal disease, because now the emerging disease spread to many parts of the world. African swine fever, avian influenza, lumpy skin disease, and also one of the issues on antimicrobial resistance in livestock sectors, in agricultural sectors, is one of the issues that we also need to work together. We need a strong collaboration to solve those problems. Or even though once the COVID-19 broke out since last year, and also once they found the COVID-19 in the workers in slaughterhouse, or even though some countries detected COVID-19 in the packagings of food or meat products or aquatic products, it also need us to work more, even though we know that the COVID-19 is not a foodborne disease. But when it linked to the sectors, we also need to ensure that we look at the issue carefully. We know that we are in the complex world, we are in the complex food system. And that's why we also need to answer ourselves. We need to revisit, we need to review ourselves that how the livestock sectors can be transformed, or the sector itself can transform or integrate itself to sustainable food system that we are talking a lot during this year, because we know that this year is the year of the UN Food System Summit, and that's why everywhere wherever we talk, wherever we go, people are talking about the transformation. And also, we also need to discuss how can we have a better sustainable protein for all, because we know that in the past, livestock played an important role to be a protein sources for us. But one day, if we want to change, if we want to transform, how to? Because we know that we cannot change everything. It just we sleep tonight and tomorrow we wake up and everything will be changed. No, it's not easy like that. And that's why we have to make sure that we need to do something. And that's why all the action track, all the issue that we discussed at the UN Food System Summit is the challenge and opportunities of the livestock sectors to foster for the sector change. And also now we're talking about the circular economy, green, circular and bio green and circular economies. And livestock is also interact with other sectors, and that's why we need to make sure that we still play an important role. Regarding the CFS and GASL, the CFS policy recommendation and their impact on their impact on smallholders was developed a couple of years, and also the CFS policy recommendation on agroecological and other innovative approaches call for diversified production system and also integration of livestock to enhance resilient livelihood and promote sustainable products for healthy diets. And also the newly adopted voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition also speak about sustainable livestock practices that promote healthy and nutritious diet. And we would like to discuss more with GASL how to promote those voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition and other CFS policy products to the livestock communities. And we know that we still have a lot of opportunities, but we need to act now and we need to talk now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanamat, for your indeed very insightful presentation on the challenges and the opportunities that the livestock sector has in this changing world, in these changing food systems. It certainly gave an overview of the issue at stake, and I hope that GASL leadership heard the invitation to check how your products of CFS can be further disseminated and applied. Now, let me welcome and introduce the panel of stakeholders. So Buddy and Tanamat, please stay with us. You will be joined by the following colleagues. First of all is Ms. Nitya Gotche. We already met you on Monday and Tuesday. You shared very wonderfully through the Monday session, and now so there is no need to further introduce you here. Welcome back, Nitya, and nice that you joined this panel. Then I would also like to welcome Dr. Jamie Smith. He's the Director General of the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI. He assumed this position in 2012, and prior to that, he worked for the World Bank and he held senior position at the Canadian International Development Agency. This among several different positions he had during his career. And then finally, let me introduce Mrs. Alexandra de Ataide. She is the Executive Director of the International Feed Industry Federation, and she holds a number of representative positions in international organizations such as FAO, the World Organization for Animal Health, OIE, and the Codex Alimentarius. Prior to joining the industry, Alexandra worked for the Brazilian government as advisor to the Deputy Minister of Agriculture and as advisor to the Foreign Trade Secretary. Now, let me start with you, Nitya. The NGO sector has played an important role in GASL. The NGOs there, they have always been the advocate for the marginal and small livestock keepers. Now, how does this experience and this role relate to the roles of the Subcommittee on Livestock and the CFS in fostering change now, in particular in the livestock sector? Nitya, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alwyn, and thank you to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to represent the NGO sector. Yes, the NGOs have been advocates for marginal and small livestock holders as well as pastoralists. There is more. In fact, the NGO cluster of GASL has organizations who represent a wide spectrum of causes from smallholders and pastoralists to animal welfare organizations and environmental organizations. I think several very important points have been raised by the two speakers, especially the contradictions within the livestock sector posed by Dr. Tiensen. For smallholders and pastoralists, livestock is much more than a commodity or a mere source of food, which can be conveniently replaced with another. It has cultural significance for many societies. It is also one of the most important livelihood options available in marginal lands in many non-industrialized countries. In India, where I come from, livestock may also be the only asset that is owned by some communities. Women own livestock in several marginal societies, and this may perhaps be the only asset they own because they cannot hope to own land. Livestock also plays other significant and positive roles in society and for the environment. So if we're truly speaking of leaving no one behind, if we're looking at achieving the SDGs, we need to look at livestock not just as an industrial convenience source of food, as climate polluters, as environmental destroyers, or causes of pandemics. We need the Subcommittee on Livestock and the Committee on Food Security to look at livestock within diverse societies and the environments they're found in. The livelihood opportunities, the pathways out of poverty and hunger provided, the dignity that comes with the ownership of livestock for small farmers, especially women, and also the immense contribution it provides to the environmental landscape. Making that happen is a change we would like to see, and we look forward to collaborating with the committees and wish them all the best. And incidentally, Badi, just to tell you, we've contributed to your online survey already with 2 good practices. I hope they are useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I always have to look for the button, you know, to unmute myself. It looks a little bit silly when I start talking and nobody hears what I'm saying, although sometimes that's better. Thank you very much for your very concise contribution here. So you're really a main point is livestock is not just a community, it's much more. It has cultural values, it's an asset, and particularly for smallholders, a very, very important. Now, let me turn to Jimmy. You are one of the founding fathers, so to say, of GASL, and you have been associated ever since GASL came into being 10 years ago. When you look at GASL today and at the present institutional context, how does this present the situation of GASL relate to your vision, your initial vision you had for GASL? So how does this match? What are the opportunities that you see for synergies with these 2 committees that were presented by Badi and Tanawat, and also beyond, and in order to go forward to foster change in livestock sector? Jimmy, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I'm very pleased to be here. And let me take this opportunity, since you remind me of the early days of GASL, to congratulate those who have been taking it forward. Just as a going back on memory lane a little bit, GASL came about as a result of a number of pieces of work that were done. The first was Livestock and the Balance, a report by the State of Food and Agriculture of FAO that was published in 2009. The World Bank published its livestock, its Minding the Stock report in 2009 as well. And then along came a Livestock in the Landscape that was also published in 2010. All these reports pointed to some of the tremendous roles that livestock can play in food and nutritional security, and also in livelihoods. But we were having very low investments in the livestock sector, and to some extent still do. As a proportion of investments in national budgets, livestock was less than 5% of the agricultural budget. And an ODA was similar, a very small part of ODA in agriculture. So all these reports were pointing to the very important role that livestock can and should play, and argued for more investments in the sector. But there was also the need to take this forward in a very careful way. And in the creation of GASL, many facets of this were being considered. First was not only the opportunities for food and nutritional contributions, and also to livelihoods, but there were some headwinds in livestock, that it had to be made more environmentally sustainable. This, of course, was highlighted by an earlier document, The Long Shadow, that was published in 2006. So in taking forward a livestock agenda, we needed to deal with the issue of livestock and the environment. We had to look very carefully at livestock as a mediator of zoonotic diseases. At the same time, there was the debate emerging about overconsumption of animal source foods and health. And for good measure, there was also the debate about animal welfare. Large, very complex issues that required a multi-stakeholder approach to do so. It impacted on the very poor in developing countries, very rich in developed countries, private sector, public sector. And so GASL was created as a big tent to help broaden the stakeholder participation, nuance the discussion because a one size couldn't fit everywhere, generate evidence-based decision-making or promote that, and promote balanced advocacy. I think it has done all those things and done all those things admirably over the time.
Thank you very much for that. Alexandra, you also have been involved in GASL since its inception. For GASL as a multi-stakeholder partnership, the involvement of the private sector of industry has always been very important, of course. In your opinion, what do you see as key opportunities and synergies of the private sector engagement in GASL in relation to the subcommittee and to the CFS going forward?
Okay, thank you, Alvin, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone listening in today. So I want to say, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this important panel discussion. For me, it's an honor to be here. So as Alvin mentioned, I have, as the International Feed Industry Federation, been involved with GASL since its inception. But not just IFIF, but also we do work with a private sector cluster. I also want to mention we've been working together very closely with the International Meat Secretariat, the International Poultry Council, and the International Dairy Federation. And most recently, we have the pleasure also welcoming the Health for Animals as part of our cluster. So we've been talking a lot about livestock, but our sector, myself, we represent the feed industry. So I just want to say our organization represents over 80% of the total compound animal feed production worldwide. This is important, and our involvement with all of this work is because it's the focus on animal nutrition. We believe that through innovation and efficiency, it really has been an essential part of the solution to make the livestock production chain more sustainable. And this is one of IFIF's mission, to support and encourage the sustainable development of animal production and foster animal nutrition, innovation, and efficiency. Now, all of us have been involved with GASL, also through LEAP. We support and encourage the development and use of science-based global guidance to measure, benchmark, and improve environmental performance and sustainability of animal production. This was addressed by Ambassador Thiessen. And also, what are we doing here? Trying to aim also to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So how do we do this? We've been talking about how working with GASL, the Committee on Food Security, the Subcommittee on Livestock. Well, one thing I think is really important to say is that we have to be working everyone together. We can't do it alone. And we really feel that if we're all together working with the feed and food chain, we can really support in meeting the demands of 60% more food. We will have more sustainable protein for all, and really addressing the role of livestock and food security and nutrition. So as I said, that's why we're all here. And we work with our chain partners to support and input the work in GASL, as well as COAG, the subcommittee, and the Committee on Food Security. But another thing I wanted to say is, going also back from the feed industry federation side, I mean, we have a memorandum of understanding with the FAO since 2005. So back then, we already have been collaborating very successfully with the FAO to address issues on food safety and capacity development around the world. So I would like to make a couple points in trying to address the question. I think one very important thing, and to build on what's been said, but it is about the collaboration. So for us, the public-private partnerships are key because we all bring something different to the table. We bring different knowledge, expertise, programs that we have in place, good practices, what is working, what is not working, and really discussing the value added. So we can't do it alone. And this is why GASL, for example, and together with LEAP, are critically important platforms to support the sustainable development of livestock production with different stakeholders, all contributing to global sustainability initiatives. The other point I'd like to make, as we all do this, I think all stakeholders together need to ensure that all information we're working on is science-based, and ensuring we're doing using the latest science involved in reports and work we're doing. And this will also support the result of science-based policies. I also would like to take this opportunity in looking at COAG. The private sector cluster would like to say that we're very pleased that COAG at its 27th session acknowledged the importance of the livestock sector and its role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And that was really a great proposal, and we have already been working, as Badi spoke in the beginning, with the subcommittee and inputting to agenda and finding linkages there to be able to support the work. So when looking at opportunities and synergies, again, the private sector has been involved with GASL since the beginning. I think here we have an opportunity to continue to strengthen the relationship, continue to show the role of livestock in sustainable food systems. With our strong commitment in doing so, and with all these different committees, we are helping to foster continuous change in the livestock sector and make the food systems even better. And this is not just for the livestock, but I believe all of us together, it's also improving for every agricultural sector. When working on all of this, what I would say is that what we have been doing in GASL, and the opportunity here is what we have been doing in GASL, there's a great opportunity to really share the knowledge and the practices, the work we've been doing with the subcommittee on livestock, with the committee on food security, okay, obviously on issues of sustainable livestock production. And this is really going to help to further drive the agenda to support the SDGs. As I said, so that's through the GASL channel, but the private sector has also been inputting to the subcommittee livestock agenda. And we really feel that we all have the same goal, and it is with the aim to support, and Badi mentioned it also, the 9 substantial discussion items on animal health, food security, innovation, and we have a lot to bring to the table to try and support this initiative. On the Committee of Food Security, the private sector has been working for many years through the private sector mechanism. And there we have been presenting information on the role of the global livestock for food security and nutrition in view of CFS. So you're all wondering, well, I've been talking about the different venues, how the private sector has been working. I just want to say, I don't really believe this is about duplication. We heard about this earlier this week. What I think is how we can all have how we can address the objectives in these different groups, but in the end to achieve the agreed overall goal that is supporting the SDGs. So embracing collaboration and synergies is important. Looking at GASL, the Subcommittee on Livestock, COAG, the Committee on Food Security, there's an opportunity here, I think, for all of us to be on the same page. And the way to look at it is, and we heard it also this week, we look at the key aspects of change and diversity under the 4 sustainability domains where livestock supports the SDGs. We agree on the critical challenges for livestock and also the opportunities. And based on this work together, we can contribute to the food and nutrition security, livelihoods and economic growth, animal health and welfare, climate and natural resource use. And those are the 4 domains that GASL uses to address this work. So I would like to conclude to say the private sector engagement in GASL, working with all stakeholders, can help accelerate the efforts to achieve the SDGs and deliver a healthier future for all. The private sector is eager to continue to work with the different international institutions, again, COAG and the subcommittee and the Committee on Food Security, and others to really help achieve nutritious diets and resilient production built upon a foundation of science and innovation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for your input. Certainly points that came out to me is the need to work together. Also, you mentioned that you work for a long time as industry with FAO and not only GASL, so that's another point. We do have different channels to work through, and certainly an important point that you made, that we need to work on science-based policy. So the role of science is very important. Let me turn to Tanawat. Now you heard the expectations and the explications of stakeholder groups, of colleagues with regards to the CFS. I mean, the CFS, has a very particular structure. We have the governments, then we have the so-called civil society mechanism. We have the private sector mechanism. We have the high-level panel of experts as kind of the science input. So how does a collaboration then with a multi-stakeholder partnership like GASL looks like? Is there room in CFS for GASL for such a partnership? What would we need a kind of a mechanism for multi-stakeholder partnerships to bring in that collective voice that those stakeholder partnerships collected? That's the first part of my question. And the second part would be then, CFS has its agenda, how to move forward, GASL has. So can you talk a little bit about what should GASL and CFS focus on in the coming years to make a use of the synergies and to drive this transformational change we need also in the livestock sector? Tanawat.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. We know that if we want to walk fast, we should walk alone. If we want to walk far, we need to walk together. It's the same as the work in the multi-stakeholders settings or platform as the CFS. Because CFS, after the reform in 2009, CFS is a committees in FAO, and also together and also with support of the other two Rome-based agencies, IFAD and WFP. And we also have private sector mechanisms, as Alexander mentioned. We also have civil society mechanisms. We have CGIAR from our research institution around the world, and also have the regional and international financial institution to be part of this committee, because we want to hear more from different sectors. Because if the committee is just the committee of the member state, is the committee of the government agencies, we will hear just only the voice of the policymakers, and we don't hear the voice of the real sectors. We don't hear the voice of private sector, civil society, farmers, and other stakeholders around the food securities related issues. I think it's the same as GASL, as Jeremy mentioned earlier. I still remember when I worked in Thailand long time ago, when you organized the GASL meeting in Phuket, I think maybe around 6-7 years ago. I have an opportunity to join the meeting, very brief. But anyway, we know that, as Jeremy mentioned, we always say the livestock sector is important at the national level, at the global level. But when we look at the investment that the government gives to us, or even though the world gives to the livestock sector, is very, very small. And that's why the way that you are invented GASL is the way that how to ask the world or all others to look at the livestock sectors more and more and pay more attention. But in this case, we also need to make sure that in terms of our synergies, in terms of the collaborations, if we want to get more support, we need to go to meet many more people and to make sure that many more actors be part of this platform. And that's why once the FAO or COAC established the subcommittee on livestock, I see the subcommittee as an opportunity, because all the committee of FAO is the committees of the member state. But the GASL, if we have such a kind of mechanism between COAC and GASL nicely, GASL can play a role as, for example, CFS have a high-level panel of experts that bring all our scientists to work for a committee. Perhaps GASL also do the same approach to provide technical support to collect the voice of private sector, because in COAC, I'm sure that private sector cannot echo their voice directly, but GASL can collect all the voice from private sectors, from civil society, from farmer organization, from producers, and bring those voice to the COAC. And I think these types of approach or innovative approach can strengthen the collaboration and also can increase synergies among different sectors who are working around livestock sectors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanawat, for this insight. Now, finally, I see that the time is flying by. We The organizers weren't very kind to us. It only gave us about 55 minutes, but still one last question, maybe to Buddy. We know the subcommittee will be, of course, an intergovernmental committee with a very special focus governments have. And GASL is a multi-stakeholder organization. You mentioned the GASL can participate as an observer. We know what that means, can provide a technical input into the work. Is there anything else that we can make sure that, you know, these two focuses, the multi-stakeholder focus and the governmental focus, match best? So in order to support, help foster this livestock sector change. So is there anything else we need to understand in order to make most of that rather formal relationship between those two roles, I would say?
Thank you. Thank you, Alvin, for this question. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to say it clearly. The establishment of the subcommittee does not affect in any way the relationship between COAG and GASL. As an integral part of COAG, the subcommittee is part of this relationship. And as you rightly said, the subcommittee and GASL are not in competition, but complement each other. And this is so because the status and role of the subcommittee are fundamentally different from the status and role of GASL. But GASL aims to build a consensus among stakeholders through dialogue. And this may therefore facilitate the work of the COAG and the subcommittee in developing and agreeing on policies and international instruments. When it comes to the collaboration and synergies and the response to your question, let me say that as per its terms of reference, the subcommittee should collaborate with existing partners and establish communication and channels with them. But in particular, I would like to emphasize, in particular with GASL. As a matter of fact, the Secretariat of the subcommittee participate in GASL meetings, and our participation today is the best illustration. We have involved GASL, as earlier indicated, in the consultative process to develop the agenda of this subcommittee. And in the current draft agenda of the first session, GASL and LEAP are invited to prepare and submit a report on their respective work. And Nitya and Alessandra mentioned that in their intervention, a number of stakeholders, GASL stakeholders, have shown interest and are collaborating with us on the global assessment on the contribution of livestock to food security, sustainable food system, nutrition, and healthy diet. And they are collaborating with us on the development of technical document on good practices to sustainably enhance the productivity of small-scale livestock keepers. But please allow me to say that the subcommittee will definitely benefit from the pioneering work of GASL in adopting the SDGs as the reference framework for its activity, and from its work on addressing the linkages between the livestock development and the SDGs, and in particular in relation to the synergies and trade-offs. So we are already benefiting from the GASL work in this regard. The COAG 27 requested the Secretariat to develop its multi-year program of work. And this will be reviewed and hopefully adopted at COAG 28. So this multi-year program of work will allow COAG members to decide and monitor and evaluate the work of the subcommittee. This program of work will be drafted under the guidance of the COAG Bureau, but in consultation with GASL and other relevant members, relevant partners. And in drafting this MIPO, this multi-year program of work, we will definitely need to give particular attention to ensure complementarity and avoid duplication. So yes, you will have the opportunity, GASL members will have the opportunity to provide their feedback on the multi-year program of work, both during the consultation process, but also during the first session of the subcommittee where this multi-year program of work will be discussed. I hope I addressed your comment.
Yeah, thank you very much, Buddy. It's very, very good. Unfortunately, I already have to wrap up the session. There were some questions posed through the chat channel. We will make sure that they will be answered by folks the questions were addressed to. Let me thank all of you for this interesting a session. It was kind of a start to show how complex also collaboration is. We do have different channels. We all do have different constituencies, different rules to apply. We need to respect that. But to my government, it's very important that we do collaborate, and we will certainly continue pushing for that. Having said that, thank you very much to all of you. I hope for the audience it was interesting to you. And with that, I would like to hand over to Peter Ballantyne, who will lead us through the rest of the program. Peter, I hope you are here.
Actually, Alwyn, I think it's me.
Oh, it's you, sorry.
Because I want to say thank you too. I want to thank you, Alwyn, for that great facilitation of the panel. But let me also thank Badi and Tanawat, even from your quarantine, for your presentations, for joining the panel together with Jimmy, Alexandra, and Nitya. I thought your interventions were really very complimentary, and you've all helped us to explore these really important synergies and opportunities that matter a great deal, not only to us, but to the world as a whole. Thank you too for highlighting, all of you, how we can interact more. A lot of emphasis on collaboration across the diversity as we all embrace, as we work for that transformation change towards sustainable future livestock systems. And for the rest of today, it's our turn. Peter is going to lead us through that. But first, we're going to have a 1-minute technical pause, and then Peter and me a little bit too will set the scene so that we will have that opportunity to contribute views and visions and ideas, even complaints if you must, into the future priorities for the global agenda for sustainable livestock. So we really want to hear from you. Our panel discussion just now, as well as the sessions earlier this week, have really prepared us well for this. Our moderator, Peter Ballantyne, is also well prepared. So let's take a 1-minute technical pause, and then Peter will come back and explain how we're going to all have a chance to input. Thank you, and thanks, Alwyn, presenters panel again.
Good afternoon, morning, evening. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back after that nice session where we heard about the bigger picture. We heard about the Committee on Food Security, the Committee on Agriculture, and their perspectives on the livestock and the livestock agenda. So here, as Shirley had introduced, we are now going to dive deeper. We're going to talk about a bit more about ourselves for the next 90 minutes. And the topic of the session is where next for the global agenda? What are the priorities? What are the plans? What are the actions that the agenda itself should be pursuing in the coming years? So what I want to do is some important process information. We are going to begin here on this platform for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And that's because we do have interpretation here. And then we will move to Zoom and we will have, I will give a bit more detail and we'll go into some breakout and some interactive sessions. And the last part of that, we will furthermore also have interpretation. So what's the agenda looking like for the next 90 minutes? I'm now giving that short intro. Shirley is going to remind us on what GASL is about, what are the aims and outcomes, because it's important that we know what GASL currently is or are. We're going to move to Zoom. There will be a link shared on the platform in the Q&A section, so you have to look at that. And then we will be on Zoom and we will have a quick introduction to the exercise. We will spend some time together in groups, really talking and discussing, have plenary feedback, and then Shirley will tell us what happens next. And then I will remind us about tomorrow's the last day of our one-week event. So what's the objectives of this particular session? We're trying to translate all the discussions here that we've been having these last 3 days, 4 days, and elsewhere into an action plan for the global agenda for the coming years. And we're going to be drawing on the theory of change that the GASL Guiding Group and others developed last year, drawing from all those regional consultations that were held in the last month, together with a global food system summit dialogue that was held in May. So that's what we're trying to do, is really to translate all this and say, okay, what does this mean for the agenda? What are the priorities that we want to follow? So I'm going to ask Shirley, though, first of all, to remind us about GASL's current aims and outcomes. Shirley.
Thanks, Peter. Maybe put the next slide up. Yeah, as you heard, in fact, you heard already from Jimmy, this multi-stakeholder partnership was founded back in 2010, just after the publication of the Livestock in a Changing Landscape, and was introduced at the Committee on Agriculture at that time. And then I think the first meetings were actually in 2011. Today we have 117 partner organizations hosted by FAO, really seeking to better the livestock sector through more sustainable practices and policies around the world. And remembering that sustainability in all those different dimensions, social, economic, environmental, etc. Health, we might add to that list. The way that GASL works is open and voluntary, inclusive, consensual, oriented towards change, one of the themes of our discussion this week. Based on evidence and knowledge, we heard one of our panelists just mention that. Respecting that diversity, also a central theme of our discussion this week, and aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide. When we look across those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we could say something about livestock for all of them. And those of you who joined the meeting in Panama might remember that we spent almost that whole meeting unpacking and delving into what the livestock contribute across all those 17 goals. But at the end of it, we said, actually, livestock have really very direct and essential, if you like, contributions to, well, 8 goals, plus working according to goal 17 on partnerships. And you can see those here on the screen. Next slide, Peter. And you might remember too, we've repackaged those a bit into these 4 sustainability domains. These domains actually came out of the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture, held every year in Berlin, in Germany. This was the meeting in 2018, which focused on livestock and which highlighted these 4 areas. And we've been working with those as sustainability domains to help focus our efforts, our targets, our adding together in this big tent, as we've heard about. Next, Peter. So the global agenda has three main outcomes, or we call them objectives: to facilitate dialogue and consensus, to assemble and communicate evidence, and to advocate and support changes in practice and policy. When we worked on the theory of change last year, we articulated different levels at which these three objectives would operate. One is in, if you like, the sphere of control, the things that GASL itself does, the things that GASL delivers. The next, the sphere of, I can never remember if it's interest or influence, where GASL really facilitates connections not only across its own membership, but much, much more as well, with the sorts of committees that we've just heard about, for example. And then at the furthest away from GASL, if you like, it's about catalyzing dialogue and change and the use and communication of evidence in those global fora, like the Food Systems Summit, for example, the COP26. We're going to hear about those tomorrow. So that just sets a very broad context of the discussions that we're going to have now. The way that GASL set up and focus now around those sustainability domains, the objectives that cut right across all that GASL does on dialogue and consensus, on communicating and assembling evidence, and on changes in practice and policy. Let's make sure we keep those woven into our discussions, but we really want to hear new ideas from you as well. Peter?
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, so that sets us the scene. So what are we going to be doing for the rest of this session? I'm going to have a few more slides before we go to the Zoom. We're going to be focusing on two things. One is the 2030. By 2030, that's the Sustainable Development Goals, that's that Agenda 2030. What are the big outcomes, the sustainable livestock that we, the actors, the stakeholders, the sector want to have to see happen? What are the changes? What are the outcomes that we want? And we've been talking about them for the last few days and much earlier. And secondly, we would like to try and explore, okay, if those are our outcomes, where does GASL fit? We've heard about CFS and COAG and all these other mechanisms. Where does GASL fit? What are some outputs that GASL itself could catalyze or deliver or facilitate? Just what Shirley talked about. So I'm going to just run through a couple of slides here to try to give you the logic so you understand what we're trying to do. And our starting point is the global dialogue that we had in May with linked to the Food Systems Summit, those regional consultations, and as well the theory of change exercise that took place last year. And we're going to move from that and say, in relation to those four domains that Shirley introduced that came out in 2018, for each of those domains, what are the outcomes that we think are the most important for the livestock sector, whether it's climate or food security or health and animal welfare, livelihood and economic growth? What are the outcomes that we are looking for by 2030? We want to translate those outcomes to say, what does GASL bring to the party? What do we bring to the table? What are our unique contributions, the specific outputs? And ultimately to work that through more detailed and say, right, what does it do to deliver those outputs? What are the specific actions and activities, whether it's delivery, facilitation, or catalyzing? So this is a kind of a simple sort of a theory of change in a sense, where we go from the outcomes, we go to the outputs, we specify activities, and then we come together with an action plan. So today, we're going to start really at the higher end, and we want to spend some time together looking at the outcomes and looking at trying to identify those outputs. After this is all over, we would like to bring that together, and then some other people, and Shirley will tell us a bit later, will go into the details. So that's the big picture. Let me just say the next step right now is we're going to move now to Zoom. We will then break into some groups, and I will provide a bit more detailed guidance. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides right now and go back. You should be seeing a link, a Zoom link in the Q&A chat from this exercise, and there should be also be something posted on the menu of the menu, the agenda of the meeting. So I'm going to log off, and I think Shirley is also going to log off, and we're going to head away and join you on the Zoom. So if you have any questions or comments, you need to check the chat. You need to turn off your full screen option and really go to the chat, and you should see the link to the Zoom. So I'm going to sign off. We'll see you there in about half a minute, and I hope you come and join us and you don't get lost on the way. Shirley, I think we're good. We're good to go.
We're good. We're good. Yeah.
EBS,
You can also find the Zoom link on